Hey guys, don't mind the little noise in the background. It sounds like a pinball machine or like an arcade. My son got in really late last night. He actually drove home from Pennsylvania and hung out with his friends for a bit. Okay, I think he just shut it off. No, he didn't. It's still on. Just ignore it. So he's been working away. He's been traveling a lot. And he got home from Pennsylvania yesterday and he hung out with his friends for a bit and then hung out with his girlfriend for a bit. So he got in late and he's got his alarm set, but he's not shutting it off. So just ignore it in the background, okay? And yes, this is my real hair. I don't have extensions. So I wanted to just talk a little bit about what I don't do in the wintertime. Like I really focus on what I don't do just as much as what I do to manage the cold, dry air with my hypersensitive skin. So the things that I think are really important is to not wet your skin too much, never use hot water. I never use cleansers on my skin. If I do wear mineral powder and want to remove it at the end of the day, well, I do remove it at the end of the day. I use just an oil. I don't use any surfactant-based cleansers. And I make sure that if I steam, I keep the steam away from my face so that by the time it hits my face, it's just warm water. And then I'll do my 15-minute facial massage, but I don't do that very often in the wintertime. One of the things that happens is if you tend towards dry skin and your skin starts to get a little bit flaky and dry in the winter, you think that exfoliating is good. You're going to do more exfoliating. You're actually making the situation worse. So I always caution people against that. And I try to encourage them to do actually less with their skin, but to actually use more occlusive emollient formulas on their skin. So you guys know what I love. I love my balms because they are very rich. They don't contain any water and they are just pure emollient on your skin. Of course, this is my liquid portion. I keep it separate. That way I don't have to work with preservatives and worry about stuff growing in it, even though it can, but it's at a much slower rate because it's just oils and fats. And I keep my liquid part separate. This is just rose water, distilled aloe. I put a little bit of glycerin in the wintertime because it's a humectant. You can use it all year round, of course, but I especially make sure that it's in there in the wintertime. Don't really need it during the other times of year, but the wintertime, definitely you're gonna have a lot more moisture loss because of the cold air. I've already talked about the dangers of humidifiers in my other videos, so I won't cover it here. Those are tricky business, okay? So I just try to really protect my skin so that I don't have a lot of moisture loss. Now, I talked about how when I wear mineral powder in the wintertime, I do oftentimes reach for my Jane Iredale because she does have dimethicone in her product. Otherwise, it's a natural product, but she does use dimethicone, and I know some people are like, ooh, it's synthetic. All it means is that there's 3 things put together that do come from nature. So yes, it is synthetic, but it's not necessarily bad. And it does degrade into inorganic compounds that occur naturally on this planet, okay? So it's really not that big of a deal. Like I know people get all tweaky. People just have this automatic assumption that, oh, something is natural, it must be good. Something is synthetic, it must be bad. It's not really black and white like that. It's not simple like that. Okay, so there's really nothing wrong with dimethicone unless, of course, it's in extreme amounts that are going back into the earth, but that's true of anything. And it's the same thing with like sunscreen. Like people want to say that zinc oxide and titanium-based formulas are reef safe. Are they really? Because at what level will it become unsafe? And this is the problem, right? It's like, we know that a lot of the, chemicals that are being pumped out by big pharma and the big chemical industries, are endocrine disruptors and, have really negative consequences like that. I want to say it's well established with some things, and then there's other things where it's still in the debating zone, where they're still kind of trying to figure it out. But my feeling is they've had an awful lot of time to do a lot of research on sunscreen ingredients. There's no excuse. It's a multi-billion-dollar industry. Don't tell me they don't have the money for the studies. They do. So why aren't they there? Why do you read a study back from 2002 or past that saying we need more studies. Where are the flippin' studies? Where are they all? Where are they? Makes you think, doesn't it? Makes you wonder, okay? However, we have to look at, a natural ingredient with the same skepticism. Like, I don't believe these are harmful for me, for my body, because the zinc oxide isn't getting absorbed into my bloodstream. It's too big of a particle. It's staying on my skin. I'm not concerned about sunflower oil. I'm not concerned about beeswax. So I'm not concerned about this product for my health. But what happens if everybody was wearing this on their skin every day, going swimming in the oceans and it getting into the ocean? What would happen if billions of people were doing that? I don't really know. What I do know is that because zinc oxide is pretty water resistant and titanium dioxide is pretty water resistant, I don't know how much is actually getting into the water, because what I can tell you is that I don't really need to reapply these. They last all day for me. They stay on my skin all day, even if I'm swimming. So I don't know. Whereas the other ones are getting absorbed into your body, and if you do go swimming, they're absolutely not staying on your skin. They're not water resistant. At least I don't believe at this stage of the game they are. I don't use man-made sunscreens. I only use, well, some would argue that these are, is the zinc oxide coming from nature, or is it coming from a lab? Same thing with titanium dioxide. Anyway, but I'm just saying, the ones that at least you can find in nature. So again, all of these natural brands marketing reef safe, animal safe, I'm not so sure that they are, okay? Because anything that you use in excess, even if it's fine at a low dose or a low amount, anything in excess can be a problem. So we have to keep that in mind. So it's a little bit of peeve of mine. And this also brings me to the other issue, which I've talked about in other videos of mine about sunscreen use in general. It is anti-nature. Let's just face it. Nature did not mean for us to be smearing all these things on our skin every single day. Nature just didn't create us that way. And how do you know? Because what we're doing has some backlash, okay? And I'm not saying that nature doesn't have situations that have backlash, but what I'm saying is that there are so many environmental considerations to the fact that people are wearing sunscreen every single day. Okay, there's a lot of considerations that come into play that really nature isn't really designed for. Okay, nature doesn't really have a lot of safe checks that are in place for a lot of the things that humans are doing. Now, over time, do I think nature will figure it out? Yeah. Okay, but in the amount of time that humans are here, nature is just not really well equipped to handle a lot of the poisons and the toxins and the excessive amounts of things that we are pumping out into the environment, handling it in a way that is going to neutralize, eliminate, biodegrade in a reasonable amount of time so that we don't have to be poisoned or living in heaps of trash or surrounded by all of these poisonous chemicals that are still very, very active in the water, in the earth. So every time your neighbor takes a pill, it's getting into their body. They're pissing or pooping out a lot of the toxic metabolites. It's coming out their skin, so it's getting into their house, onto their children. They've actually done studies on this. They know this for sure. This is not woo. This is absolutely substantiated. They know that nurses that work in oncology, more so than the doctors, because the nurses are the ones administering the chemo, that they actually have high levels of chemo in their body, and their families have detectable levels of cancer treatment chemo in their bodies, because the nurse, mother, father, whoever it is bringing it home. Okay, so they know this. This isn't even debatable. And they know this from the military, where people were in the military and they were exposed to all of these toxic chemicals, and they were coming home and poisoning their wives and their children, their unborn babies, their children. It's a concern. Okay, it's a real concern. And that's why I stick with nature. Again, is nature always better? I'm not saying that it is, but I'm comfortable with zinc oxide. I'm comfortable with titanium dioxide. Just don't inhale the powders. I'm comfortable with using animal fats and plant oils on my skin. I am comfortable using certain essential oils on my skin that have been used for hundreds, if not thousands of years, and have a pretty good profile, a pretty good safety profile when used in very low doses. And again, I'm not appealing to the nature is perfect, nature is great, there's no risk to nature, there's no, safety issues. That's not at all what I'm saying. But what I am saying, that in nature's design, nature is perfect in nature's design, in nature's way. We don't relate to it because we don't function and operate out of a natural paradigm. But what I'm saying is nature knows what nature is doing. And then when we start messing things up a lot, it starts to add a lot of complicated issues and some problems that are not easily solved. And I just believe that if we are going to be pumping out all of these massive amounts of Frankenstein chemicals, we need to have really, really good things in place that are going to help these things to break down, biodegrade, neutralize them so they're not so toxic. But right now, our waters are toxic. We have trash everywhere, trash in the ocean. People are literally living in heaps of trash. It's really a sad state. Okay, so that is why I prefer nature. At least things in nature belong in nature, right? And you can't take from nature what isn't there. You can't take from nature what's not there, right? So you can only get so much. And yes, you can exploit it. You can cut down all the trees. You can zap a certain medicinal plant and totally get rid of it. You can do what they're doing to frankincense and myrrh. They're using so much of it that it's becoming threatened. It'll possibly be endangered soon. And that's because people are using it for stupid shit. It's one thing to use it as medicine, okay? To heal. And I see aroma skincare as medicine. It's healing. It's healing the skin. I've healed an enormous amount of sun damage on my skin by using essential oils. They're medicine. I've healed multiple lesions on my face with aroma medicine. It's medicine. But I'm not using it for incense because it smells good. And some people can talk about the whole spiritual piece and the whole thing, but you know what? You don't need to smell anything to be spiritual, all right? Let's just make that clear. I'm not saying that it's not an ancient plant and that it doesn't have these beautiful qualities to it. But what I'm saying is we don't need to be cutting down all of these trees for incense. We don't need to be using all of these precious resources to scent our laundry detergent. Okay? We don't need to be doing that. It really bothers me when I see the aromatherapy world and, they're trying to sell essential oils. So they're marketing them to use them for everything. But these are precious resources. And it really annoys me to no end. I only use them as medicine. I will possibly make a perfume for someone if it's somebody who's using conventional perfumes and they want to come into my house, because commercial perfumes are complete neurotoxins for me. They freak my body out. And I will make them a perfume so that they have like something to wear when they come to my house. These are like my kids' friends or my son's girlfriend, or, my daughter went through a period of time too where she wanted to wear perfume in high school. And so I would give her a perfume that I made. And it's just something that I've always been really good at. And some of my perfumes are actually really incredible. But I don't see that as something necessary. It's not really something that we want to waste precious resources on, is scenting ourselves. It's kind of crazy to me. But again, to anoint yourself with one drop of something, one drop, versus dousing yourself with it, that's a whole nother story. So basically my perfumes are like anointing oils. And the reason I say that is because it's like, no, just one tiny little bit. One tiny little bit. And put it on your clothes if you don't want to put it on your skin. Just, and it's enough to kind of like give you a little bit of that scent. But what happens is we become nose blind to it, and our body adapts to it. So then we can't smell it. So then you need to use more and more and more and more. So it's a problem. Scented products are a problem. So I don't use things for their scent unless it's for like a cold and you want to do a little bit of steaming with like, some herbs or very, 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 very diluted essential oils. And I am talking much lower than what most people think. You want it at a level that is like barely detectable with your senses. And that's, again, a whole nother subject, because most people are nose blind. So most people have to have a lot of it to even recognize it and to smell it. And that's where you start getting into dangerous territory. So again, there's all these different layers, which gets really kind of complicated. And I know this is kind of like for people, but it's something really serious to think about. And, you know, then you have the whole natural scent thing. Well, people are supposed to smell our scent. It actually regulates our hormones. It actually does all sorts of things to our body. And when you're putting all of these chemicals and stuff on your body, who knows if you're changing your hormones? Who knows if you're changing your body's ability to detect the scent of your potential lifetime partner, right? Your mate. It's a big deal, because pheromones are really important when we're choosing a mate. Your biology, not even your brain, your biology is actually trying to choose a partner so that your offspring will be healthy and have the greatest chance of survival. Did you know that? Like, no, most people don't know this. So people are fucking with their hormones with all of these endocrine disruptors, and even too many plant products can interfere with, you know, your hormones, right? I mean, they know this because they do bind with some of our receptor sites and mimic. And remember, mimic is never nature. Mimicry is not nature. It's not what our own body is producing. So real healing is about getting the body to actually work effectively without having to rely on all of these external things like medicines, whether it be pharmaceutical from the big pharma or pharmaceutical from the farm or nature, right? They're all chemicals. And I'm not for or opposed to anything. I think there's a time and a place for everything. I do like natural medicine. It's what I align with. I've raised my kids with it. My kids have never had to go to the doctor for any health concern ever. Never. And we've dealt with really serious things. This is where I live. And it's not to say I'm opposed to this. I do think there's a time and a place for it, for sure. For sure. I ended up having to go through, you know, a little bit of the system when I had severe COPD. It was caused by chemicals, chemical pneumonia. It's not from smoking. And but that was killing me. That was actually making me progressively worse. And they like to tell you that the disease is progressing, and I'm like, no, it's the medications, because I'm actually worse now than I was before I started. They try to gaslight you into telling you that, oh, you just have a progressive disease, and I'm like, no, these are making me worse. And of course they don't believe you. And I get off the meds and started treating myself with natural medicine, and I am significantly better. My lungs are so good now. Like, and I'm not saying they're perfect. I don't know that they'll ever be perfect. They were severely damaged, but I am so good now that I can go days and I forget to take my remedies. I forget to take them because that's how good my lungs are doing. So the meds were making me worse, absolutely making me worse. And this is just something I caution people about all the time. You can't trust doctors. They're too invested in what they do. You can't trust them. Use the system in an emergency to get you out of a life-threatening situation, but then look for other alternatives, because there are other alternatives. You can actually get your body to work better. You really can. And I've been doing this for 30 years. And I'll tell you, when I've had to walk my own walk and talk my own talk, that's when you really find out for sure. Signing out.